we call Warren Light Center 2, someplace in western Pennsylvania. Um, we've got a group here of, I don't know, 20, 30 people. And this is a solstice celebration that's been basically going on for probably 80 years at this point. We used to be at a place called Warren Light Center, which is located outside of Franklin, Pennsylvania. You can find the website for Warren Light Center at warrenlightcenter.com. And you can see some of the history of Warren Light Center and some of the things that have gone on there over the years. There's a section on that website called Warren Light Center 2, and this is another location. It's some of the same people and some new people from the old Warren Light Center. So what we're going to be talking about today are some important things of how to develop your consciousness, your awareness, how to get beyond the negative stuff and the monkey mind stuff and, oh my God, am I good enough? Or should I do this or shouldn't I do this? Or is somebody in my way or causing me problems or causing me to make mistakes or create challenges and all that kind of nonsense. We're going to move beyond that. And we're going to move beyond that very, very quickly. One of the first things, at least in my experience, to help you make yourself more conscious, more aware, is to simply become aware of events, activities, gatherings, meetings, that kind of thing. Meet up with like-minded people. Maybe at conferences, maybe at meetings, maybe whatever. You're not going to raise your consciousness sitting at home at your house doing nothing. You're not going to raise your consciousness sitting at home in this day and age watching YouTube videos. And you're certainly not going to raise your consciousness sitting at home watching anything on the television set. That's almost a total wasteland. There's almost nothing on your television set that makes any sense. Back in the 1960s, I learned something really important. I was in high school. I was a senior in high school when John F. Kennedy was assassinated. And I had learned something really important at that stage of my life, 17 years old, 16 years old. And that was the news. It was in the newspapers and it was on our television here in America, was not necessarily correct, nor was it accurate. One of the first things I ever bought in my life when I was earning money, working on my father's farm, was a shortwave radio. And I listened to the shortwave radio, and I would pick up newscasts from China, from Russia, from Germany, from England, from South America, from Africa, Australia. And I learned very quickly that what the news was teaching us and telling us here in this country on the 3 networks that we had then, and the newscasts were a couple of times a day, was not the same story that was being told to other places in the world. It wasn't the same story at all. If you listen to in those days, I think it was 10 o'clock news or something, NBC, ABC, and CBS, you heard a story of something that happened. If you listen to the BBC or if you listen to London or one of the international shortwave broadcasting stations, and interestingly enough, the United States had what they called Voice of America, also a shortwave station. It was interesting that even the Voice of America that's beamed all over the world was not telling the same story as was being told on our news. We'll move forward 50 years, whatever. That is still true, but it's even more so true now than it ever has been. The reason is our news is 24 hours. We have cable type or satellite type news feeds that are 24 hours. It used to be, and I worked in radio back in the 60s. I had a radio program, and one of the things we had to do was read the news. The news came in on a teletype. In fact, it came in on one of two teletypes. And what we were expected to do with that news is read the news and comment on it. But those comments had to be verified by an editor, and it had to be true, and it had to be as accurate as you could do it. Okay, we've gone 180 degrees now. The news sources are putting stuff out there that not only is it not verified, they're printing fairy tales as truth. When I was in high school and college, when you checked out of the grocery store, they had these magazines, and they had the National Examiner and the Globe and stuff like that. We knew that the stories in those things were fantasy, fiction. They made no sense. Well, what we've got in our mainstream media right now is more insane, crazy, wrong stuff than even the National Enquirer, the Globe, or any of those things ever had. So step one in consciousness development is turn off your television set. There's nothing much out there. It's a wasteland of, depending on what you've got. I don't know. I kind of checked the hotel last night, and I do this from time to time. I got 56 channels. No, had 76 channels. I went through the channels, looked at them each one, and I'm going, I don't see anything here of interest that convinces me that I should spend $30 to $90 a month to have access to this nonsense. You can learn a lot on the internet, and it's really a good idea to use the internet. Internet is amazing, actually. It's sort of like having access to everything that's in your local library at your house, live and in real time. And that's pretty neat because you can do your own research. One of the things that's going on in media is there are independent, investigative, and researchy types of people putting out articles, putting out blog posts, putting out videos of what's going on. They're actually vetting this stuff, investigating this stuff, like the newscasters used to do a long time ago. Used to be that things would come on television. And then the next morning, we would go out and we would buy the newspaper because we wanted to read the newspaper story that gave more details on that television newscast the night before. Newspapers used to be a lot of cities had 2 or 3 newspapers, an evening one and a morning one, and they were in competition with each other, and people strive to try to give us accurate news and different viewpoints. That's no longer true, unfortunately. So what does this have to do with consciousness? We're constantly being bombarded with everything. What we read in the newspaper, what we read in books, what we read in magazines, what we hear on television. And television is extremely effective in changing and modifying what we think, what we believe, what we feel. This was accurately described in a little book called 1984 by George Orwell. We're living in 1984. We're living in that consciousness, that awareness. So what we need to start to do is to become aware of what we're thinking, how we're thinking, what are we accepting, not taking anybody's word for anything. We need to take responsibility for what we think, what we believe to be true, what works for us. And in doing that, we begin to attract to us other people with similar thoughts. And so when you attract to you other people with similar thoughts, maybe at a coffee shop or a restaurant, whatever, you kind of meet up with these people and you can kind of sit down and talk about things that you agree on. The reality is we each have our own belief system. I may not believe like you do, but I need to be really open to your beliefs. If I am not open to your beliefs and close my mind, and you're telling me something that's going on, I'm going to sit there and go, well, person is crazy or stupid or whatever. I'm not going to learn anything, and that's not going to help our consciousness. So what we're going to talk about is some ways to absolutely increase your consciousness. And we're going to talk very specifically about how to practice telepathy. But before we get to the telepathy part of it, we need to be able to still our mind. You ever try meditation? Some people can meditate, and it's very good, and it's a good thing to learn. But if you're sitting there meditating and you're into it about a minute, and you're thinking about, I need to pay the electric bill. Do I have the money for the car payment? I've got this meeting this afternoon. That's not meditation. That's busy mind stuff. It doesn't help you grow. Meditation is the ability to not blank your mind, but the ability to just let the monkey mind, the multiple thoughts, they kind of go by. Let them pass. Oh, I'm thinking about paying the car. Okay, fine. I'll let that go. I'll go back to whatever my meditation technique is. In meditation, there are many, many techniques, different ways to do it. Some work better than others for some people and other people. The thing to know about meditation, there's no correct way except the way that works for you. The way that works for you is when you can simply sit down and then you're in this state and you kind of open your eyes and you look at the clock and you go, wow, 20 minutes have passed. Cool. Or 10 minutes or 5 minutes. But if you're constantly being interrupted by your thoughts, all I can say is you need to practice more meditation. Get it to where you can simply sit or whatever you're doing for your meditation, sit, stand, walk. You can do moving meditation, yoga, many, many techniques, transcendental, Zen. There's hundreds of ways, sitting meditation, moving meditation, whatever works for you, where you get into a timelessness of 20 minutes. And then you kind of come back and it's like, wow, what happened? 20 minutes have gone. But what you will find is if you start monitoring your physical body, 20 minutes of that kind of blankness, mindlessness, it's going to lower your blood pressure. It's going to lower your stress level. It's going to lower your cardiac stuff. You do that 20 minutes a day, pretty much every day, you're going to diminish your chances of a heart attack. You're going to diminish your chances of stress-related illness. And you'll get yourself to a point where you can get into that meditative state whenever you want or need. Don't need to be there for the whole 20 minutes. So you're at work. The boss comes down on you and says, man, I don't like what you've been doing. And so your natural reaction, at least mine was, I'd get in his face and, what are you talking about? I'm doing the best I can here and on and on. Don't do that. That's stress, that's anger, and that's what everybody out there, everything out there is trying to make us do. If you can do it at all, boss comes down on you and go, yeah, man, we'll talk about this in a minute, but I really have to go to the restroom. Go to the restroom, sit down, still your mind, get quiet, get over the anger, take a few deep breaths. They don't need to know whether you went or not, but that's a good excuse. Come back out and go, yes, sir. What was it you wanted to talk about? Now you're calm. You're at a level where you can communicate. And that's really important, particularly in consciousness. All right. So what we want to do, first of all, is still our mind. Next of all, things happen that we're led into, we create, who knows? But we get a feeling that maybe we should go somewhere or do something. And you do that, and you run into somebody maybe you haven't seen for years and years and years. And you have this wonderful conversation, if you're open to it. you're not open to it and you're stressed out, oh my God, I've got to go to Walmart and I've got to do this and I've got to do that. If you're stressed out, you're going to miss any kind of opportunity. Like somebody you hadn't seen in years is hanging out in Walmart. So let's start thinking about meditation, quiet your mind, stilling your body, getting balance. And there's a lot more to that, but mostly it's breathing stuff. If you look at meditation, yoga, Tai Chi, even martial arts, a lot of it is based on breathing. So this is a clue that these are, and a lot of meditation techniques have got it too. Follow the breath and all of that. So we can look at breathing as a way to start this meditation and consciousness training. So that's a start. But serendipitous experiences are amazing and they're critical to our consciousness development. This is getting a feeling that you need to do this, go here, do that. And so you simply follow your intuition and you do it. About a year ago, I was feeling very strongly that I needed to go to a place called ECETI, run by a fella called James Gilliland. And with me, particularly, and that's out in Washington State, it's a long drive. So with me, it's a pretty simple situation. If the universe furnishes me with the wherewithal to do this kind of trip, in other words, some time off, I don't have a bunch of clients and a bunch of jobs and a bunch of tasks that I need to deal with. I have the money to go on whatever this excursion, trip, meeting, conference is. And everything's just sort of, when you're in the flow, when you're into serendipity, when you're into synchronicity, the doors just open. If you find yourself really struggling, it's like, oh man, there's this conference out in California and I really, really want to go. I just got to go there. Oh man, I don't have the money. I don't have the time. When you start coming into that kind of consciousness, you're creating tension, and all you're doing is going to put up every kind of barrier in the world. And even if you go, you probably are going to be so tight and so tense that you're going to totally miss whatever the experience was supposed to be. So anyway, I ended up in a ECETI. And at ECETI, there were some really incredible speakers. A couple, three I had met previously, but really informally. ECETI is a situation where you can talk with the speakers one-on-one. People are kind of hanging out. It's a park atmosphere like here. They're at the picnic benches. They're walking around. They're not hiding in the speaker's room or whatever. And they're off their pedestal. They're not, oh man, this guy or gal is so important. They're not doing that. So we can hang out. Well, I met several people that were really interesting at ECETI, and we spent a lot of time talking. One of those people was Clifford Mahody. Clifford Mahody. Mahody, yeah. And Clifford was at ECETI, and we got to talk a little bit. I learned that Clifford was an engineer who had served in he's a Native American Zuni. He'd served in the U.S. military. When he got out of the military, his GI Bill, went to engineering school. He became an engineer, an electrical engineer. And he worked in the white world for a very long number of years as an electrical engineer. But he stayed in contact with his tribe and his traditions. And when he retired, he went back to his reservations. And the Zuni are the only Native American tribe that are still on their original land. They're kind of surrounded by Hopi, and they're kind of surrounded by Navajo. You know, the directions and all that junk around where these people are. But anyway, I met Clifford at ECETI, and he was interesting. And I got to talk to him one-on-one a little bit. He was very busy. He was one of the speakers, and everybody wanted to talk to Clifford. Fine. I met this other lady, and she was really interesting, and we talked a lot, and we knew that we had a lot in common, and I kind of let that go. And this was in, I don't know, June, July. It was July. It was over July 4th holiday. And I didn't hear anything more about anybody from SETI. A couple of people had contacted me that got my email message or got my email address, and they had some questions about some things we were talking about. But it got into December, and this gal sent me a tweet saying, "Hi, I met you at ECETI, and we talked." And she didn't give her name. She had a code name that she uses on Twitter. And she says, follow me and then private message me. And I'm going, okay, I guess I can figure this out. I hadn't really used private message in Twitter before. So I private messaged her and I says, are you so-and-so who I met at ECETI? I don't see a name on this message. She says, sure, that's me. And we got to talking, and I was looking at her Twitter feed. Twitter's kind of like Facebook, only it's not so well policed, and it's just short things. You can only write a couple, 3 sentences. But anyway, I looked at her Twitter feed, and she was in contact a lot with something called Sandia, the ET. And I'm going, the world is this? And so I started looking at some of that Twitter feed stuff and going, it's kind of interesting. And so I tweeted her back going, what is this and why are you in so much conversation? It looked really fakey to me. And so she said, well, she says, yeah, they're on Twitter. Here's their website. Oh, and by the way, I am the talent person who hires the talent for an event called Wild West Steampunk Con in Arizona. And I'm looking at this, and I'm looking at Wild West Steampunk Con, and I'm looking at the people going, what in the world is this, and why would I have an interest? But she said, the interesting thing that we're doing is our theme this year has to do with extraterrestrials, non-terrestrials, and that kind of thing. She said, in fact, I'm going to be bringing in as entertainment, as part of the entertainment, and they've got a lot of odd entertainment. They're making costumes, they're doing mechanical things. It's an interesting thing. I was there for 4 days. I still don't exactly understand what a steampunk festival is. But anyway, she was bringing in Clifford Mahody. And I'm going, wow, that's cool. And she was bringing in Sue Walker and Reverend Otter. Sue Walker and Reverend Otter are the people who have this Sandia website and this Sandia Twitter feed. And the Twitter feed goes back several years. But they're non-terrestrials, they're non-humans. They kind of, to me, at first, looked like the little gray things that had been abducting people. And I'm looking at those pictures going, man, I don't want nothing to do with them. I had been prejudiced, carefully taught, whatever, that Zeta Reticuli, these gray beings up there, you really don't want anything to do with them. And I'm reading their stuff going, they're not like some of the things I've heard and direct experience I've had with these beings that were doing abduction. I was a deprogrammer. I used to deprogram people who had been picked up and abducted and gone through very stressful stuff. And I used to deprogram them. So I wasn't real excited, especially when I found out that they're from Zeta Reticuli, the same general part of the sky or space or whatever, as the ones that are doing the abduction. And so, okay. And I looked at their website and I went to the Wild West thing. But prior to that, I had downloaded, they have a free book on Telepathy 101. The book is free on their website. Their website is Official First Contact. It's a really interesting book, and I started reading it. I've taught a lot of stuff on telepathy and clairvoyance and consciousness development and all this woo-woo stuff. I've been teaching that for a good number of years in a lot of different ways. I used to be a hypnotist, a hypnotherapist, and using hypnosis. And so I'm reading this book going, this is excellent. It's actually really well written, extremely well written. It's a free ebook. It can be downloaded. And I believe Shirley may have run some copies off, and we'll get to that in a little bit. I don't want to get the booklet out there with all of the disturbance. So anyway, I'd read the book. I started doing some of the practices, and the practices made sense. And so I went to Arizona, Tucson, and I went to the festival. And I met Sue and Otter really early, the day before the festival started, at the hotel next door to mine where they happened to be staying. And we talked for a little bit. Ordinary, neat people. Sue is an extremely accomplished clairvoyant, psychic, years of experience. And she had met Otter. Sue was from Midwest, and her story is online. And she ended up going to Arizona at Otter's place. And Sue is going, do you hear all those voices? And Otter goes, what? Well, and she was very hard. It was difficult for her to have this conversation. She just met this guy, and they kind of dating. And here she's at his house for the first time in Arizona. And she didn't know whether she wanted to bring this kind of stuff up because she didn't know exactly where he was coming from. She said, well, I hear these voices, and they're coming out of the mountain over there. And Otter goes, oh, yeah, them. They talk all the time. And she goes, wow. And so Sue began to communicate with them telepathically. And it got to be like talking to the neighbors across the fence. Her story is fascinating. It's on the website. There's several links that you can link to YouTube videos. So anyway, I go to Arizona, and I've already figured it out. This woman, Sue, who's a clairvoyant, is talking to beings that are invisible. Okay? You can't see them. And I'm going, yeah, right. This sounds pretty creepy and strange and all of that. Okay. My laptop is hungry. So it needs critically power. I was on one of the ET sites this morning early, and they were talking about how these UFOs keep showing up around power stations. And they got into all the discussion, mostly on Twitter, about how nuclear power stations are dangerous and all of this and that and that. And I'm looking at it going, well, maybe they just needed to recharge their ship or their personal communication devices is why they're hanging out at the nuclear stations. Well, one of the these non-terrestrials, these invisible beings, as this lady Sue talks to, tweeted me back going, that's really funny, and it's not true. We're self-enclosed and we're self-powered. I go, okay. But anyway, so I meet this lady who's talking to invisible people. Now that's pretty crazy by itself. Here I'm at this steampunk festival where people are dressed like in the 1800s, and the costumes were strange to me. And they got all this mechanical stuff and clockwork stuff, and it's like, I don't know who, and they were weird. So the lady that's talking to invisible people, she wasn't as weird as some of the people at the steampunk festival. But I went to the first class, and there were just a few people there. There weren't very many for her class. And she's telling her story, and she's talking about these beings. Okay, I'm kind of a clairvoyant. I always have been. I can get into being medium stuff and bringing people across and so on. And I'm feeling energy around her, not her, that was not associated with her. That was in the morning. That evening, she had another class. And that one was Telepathy 101. It's really interesting because I was the only person in the class. No one else was there. That's neat. And I had talked to her a little bit during that first day, but mostly I'd been roaming around with none other than Clifford Mahooty. Clifford didn't know anybody except for the lady who invited me and Sue and Otter and their friends. So I'm roaming around with Clifford Mahooty almost all day, and we're having wonderful conversations about the Zuni and their legends and their mythology and their connection to the ET and space and what the Hopi believe about this and what the Zuni believe. Wonderful experience. That was worth the trip to Arizona all by itself. So I'm in this class, and here's Sue, and she's talking about Telepathy 101, the book. And I had worked with it a little bit, and I hadn't really had any good results. They talk about that you receive a ping and you send a ping. And I didn't really understand that, although I've been doing telepathy at various different levels for a very long time. To me, I don't really hear voices. There's a background noise. It's always there. And to be telepathic to work for me, I have to go to that background noise and pick out who I'm trying to communicate with. They kind of have to be on the same wavelength, frequency, whatever you want to call that, for me to connect with them clearly telepathically. They kind of raise up out of the background noise, and I pick out the one person, and we can have straight up forward conversations. And I've always been able to do that. And I've done that with non-terrestrials. I've been in contact with non-terrestrials the exact same way. I've been in some spiritual, religious, and martial arts classes where the sensei, the master, was actually telepathic. And so students would hear the master in their own language. I don't even know what language the master taught. I thought he spoke English. I didn't understand this stuff then. But the other people in the class were hearing them in German, French, Japanese, Chinese, on and on. And I believe now what was going on there is the master was simply telepathic. Very good telepathic, very strong sender. The interesting thing about telepathy is this. You can transcend anything that happens in language, including speaking with non-terrestrials, deep earth beings, ocean-going things, Sasquatch things are all telepathic. You can hang out and talk to whales. You can talk to dolphins. You can roam out in the woods and talk to the big brothers over there telepathically. You can talk to somebody from France, Russia, on and on, telepathically. That's pretty neat. And you can talk to non-terrestrials telepathically. It may be what people are doing when they're bringing people across from the spirit world. I don't really know. I know I can do that. I don't know how it's done. So anyway, there's this lady, and she's talking to invisible beings. I'm going, yeah, right. This is the strangest science fiction story I've ever heard. But I'd read enough of the web and heard a couple of her interviews to know that what she was saying made sense. The Telepathy 101 booklet had made sense. At that point, I hadn't really deeply studied it, but I had downloaded and I had read it in preparation for the Arizona trip. And one of the things that she had said in her first lecture was, even though you can't see them, they're not really invisible. They're not in the same phase as we are. And you can see them out of the corner of your eye. You can see them if you tipped a mirror a certain way. And I'm listening to this Telepathy 101 thing, and I'm looking at my iPad thinking, that's pretty reflective. She was talking about moving it like a mirror. I could feel something around her. It was stronger this time. And so I'm kind of fooling around with my iPad. The only person in the class at that point, a couple more people joined later on, and I'm moving the iPad around, and I got the shock of my life. Now, I'm experienced with non-terrestrials, so-called aliens. In fact, alien to me, whenever they talk about illegal aliens, I don't even associate that with people from Mexico, South America, Central. Illegal aliens to me are simply folks that come here in shiny silver things that the government says doesn't exist. And I've always had that experience, but I'm sitting there with my iPad and I'm fooling around with it and I'm going, oh, damn. Oh my God. They actually exist. There are 4. I'd seen enough of their website that I knew 3 of them. I recognized them. And I'm going, holy Toledo. I'm thinking that I used to do psychic investigation, where you go out and you would expose people that are really into ripping people offline, that kind of thing. And I'm sitting there in the mirror on my iPad, seeing these 4 beings that they're not Earth human. They ain't from around here. And I knew 3 of them. I didn't know the 4th. And so she went on with that class. And then the next day there was another class and there was another class. And so we got another one of those classes where I was the only one in the class for a while. And it was an advanced class, supposedly in telepathy. And I didn't really need a lot of the background, although the book is wonderful. It's really a good book. It's free. And you can download it. And I think Shirley's got a few around here. So I'm sitting there and suddenly I'm looking and I can see almost, but I can feel in my head this really strong energy right in the crown. And it's just like this. And I'm going, wow, what is that? And I'm hearing very clearly in my head, hi, my name is Ufu. And I go, hi. He says, I'm the 4th one that you don't recognize. And I go, okay. He says, you and I are on about the same wavelength. He says, I'm an engineer, technician. I kind of fix stuff that people break, and I try to improve some of our technology. I go, cool. I do the same thing. And then he did the oddest thing. He said, I kind of watched you driving here to Arizona as I was hoping that I'd get the chance to talk to you. I'm going driving to Arizona. Nobody knows that I'm going to Arizona. He said, no, I'm hearing in my head, I'm kind of watching you drive. And Sue was hearing him too. And she was also saying some of the same words. And he says, are you government? And I'm going, no. Why do you have a government radio in your car? And I'm going, huh? He goes, you have some kind of government radio in your car. Are you government? And I go, no. I've worked with the government. I've been government part-time my entire life, but so far as being government in the way he said it, and I understand it clearly to mean, CIA, NSA, FBI, undercover agent. No, I don't do that. And I said, oh, the radio. It's an amateur radio. I'm a ham radio operator, have been for many years. He goes, oh, but it's a government radio. I said, well, that's absolutely true. I'm a ham radio operator, so I have a government license for amateur radio, but I'm not a government agent of any sort. And he says, oh, okay, we can talk to each other. And I'm going, all right. And so we got to the end of that particular conference. And it was time for me I had some business I needed to do in Phoenix. And so I went to Phoenix, not thinking too much about what was going on. And I got the business done in Phoenix and started the drive back to Kentucky. So I'm driving across, who knows, Arizona, New Mexico. I can't tell the difference. They all look the same. There's nothing there. And of course, the people that come to where I come from, central Nebraska, they do the same thing. Oh my God, this place is awful. You leave Lincoln and you go to North Platte, there's nothing there. I'm going, yeah, there is. Millions of dollars in acreage, cattle, half your food and all of that. But they look at it and go, oh, there's nothing here. I'm like that with Arizona and New Mexico. So I'm driving across Arizona. And all of a sudden, I'm getting this energy in the top of my head. And it's a very specific energy. It's very different than any energy I've ever experienced with any of the telepaths and psychic and that kind of thing that I've worked with. And suddenly there's this voice in my head going, "Hi, I'm Zufu. I'm here. Can you feel and hear my ping?" I go, "Yeah." He says, "That's the way I can connect with you." He says, "Do you mind if I ride in your car?" I'm going, "You can do that?" He says, "Sure." I said, "How are you here?" He says, "Oh, ship's over there." And I'm going, looking out, and there's all these puffy clouds. And he says, "The ship's right over there." He said, "Do you want to play the cloud game?" I go, "What's the cloud game?" He said, "Well, which cloud isn't a real cloud?" I'm looking at the sky driving, and there's these puffy clouds, the fluffy kind. And one of them, the clouds are moving very slowly toward the east, northeast. And one of them wouldn't move in that direction. It was moving opposite. I said, "Well, one cloud is moving in a different way than the rest of them. I would say that that's the cloud. If you're playing some sort of game, that's the cloud I choose." He says, "Correct. Now I'll make the cloud disappear." I go, "Cool." I'm thinking, wow, I might get to see his ship. And the cloud disappeared. There wasn't anything there. I could feel energy, but there wasn't anything there. I said, "I don't see any ship." He says, "Well, of course not. We have a treaty. We're not allowed to uncloak or decloak at this point in time." And so he talked for a while, and then the clouds started coming together, started to rain, and he kind of went away. So at that point, I had gone to Arizona being very skeptical, thinking this lady has got to be some sort of a fluke, talking to these invisible people, to being absolutely convinced that these people do exist. They do want to talk to us. They are friendly. They want to teach us, help us, work with us. They're neat people. They're one of the funniest things that they say is, somebody had said, "Well, are you Greys?" And Commander Tolkien, I can't say it exactly right, it said, "No, don't call us Greys. That's an insult. We don't call you pinks or browns. You can call us Zeta Reticuli if you wish, or you can simply call us Ponti, is what our race is called, or you can call us the people from Sandia Mountain, or you can call us the people from the planet Pontel. But please don't call us Greys. That's kind of an insult. We don't call you pinks." And from there, you start to learn that these are human. They just look different than us. They're conscious, they're friendly, they want to work with us. So, what I'm recommending, oh my. Hi. Hi. Okay. This is Tina. That's funny. Yes, I heard it earlier today. She said, and repeated, I heard her earlier this afternoon, the same thing. She says, "Oh, we were all over at Alien Con in Los Angeles." She says, "Earth humans are really funny. They're over there at Alien Con in costumes dressed as aliens. They have absolutely no clue what an alien even looks like, acts like, or feels like." And she says, "Earth humans are just so silly." And what's neat with her, and you should be able to feel her, sense her, whatever, she's a very strong telepath. She's not as strong as the telepathic instructor who was here last night. Tina's very small. She's small for the Pantai, and very slight. But she wrote Telepathy 101. You'll see her picture in the download. So we got the author. Yeah, of course. I wrote the book. Isn't it customary in your culture when you write the book to go to the people and show them the book and they sign the book? I wrote the book. So I show up because you've got the book here. It's the same as you, right? Don't your people who write books do that? And I'm going, yeah, okay.
She wrote in my book.
No, they cannot go physical. There's treaties. There's a lot of reasons right now. She could shift her consciousness and become visible, but they're not allowed to do that right now. The treaties have to do not with here, especially. They have to do with the International Council and what is going on as we go more into disclosure. So as we get into disclosure, as it becomes more and more something that we can do or talk about, they are going to start to become more visible. We were told a month or two ago that there would start to be really pretty valid stories about UFOs, non-terrestrial craft, coming out in major news sources. Just the day before yesterday, the Washington Post did a pretty good article about non-terrestrial, or about ships, about the UFOs. The interesting thing, and MUFON did this for years too, is they keep talking about the hardware. Oh, we see these lights in the sky and the discs, and they describe the discs, and there's a whole historical encyclopedia on all of the discs and where and on and on. A lot of stuff about the hardware. Very little in MUFON and very little in the normal UFO community about the possibility that these things may be occupied and piloted by intelligent beings. And that's going to start to come out more. Right now, there's major news sources are starting to release information about craft that our government supposedly has no clue what they are, how they work, where they come from. But the thing is, it's about consciousness. If I'm the only person out there talking about shiny metal things that scientists don't believe in, and do that from a public platform, I'm probably going to end up locked up in the place called the state mental hospital and probably suffering from some sort of psychosis, schizophrenia, and so on. Now, if I go around telling people, hey man, I've been talking to these folks that's invisible, they're going to lock me up. But we're being told, and we're hearing it from a number of sources, that disclosure is coming, and is coming very soon. One of the things that's going on, there's a lot of negative forces and controlling forces that have been around for thousands of years. And they're losing their grip on their control of us. And we are starting to break free. Breaking free is a consciousness deal. Like I said yesterday, I believe this, and she's repeating it. If there is just a few of us talking about, not even telling a lot of our friends and neighbors, but who believe that there are non-terrestrial beings, that they are here to help us, they are friendly, they're neat people. A few of us with that belief can help more people wake up. It's called waking up. People are starting to learn meditation and yoga, and it's like there's things out there. I know of a pretty large Christian faith that teaches, man, you don't want to do meditation. Good Lord, if you blank your mind, Satan, the devil, will get in there. Extreme fear stuff about meditation. And oh my God, you can't do yoga. Yoga blanks your mind and Satan can take over your body. That's nonsense. That's fear. That's control. It's been around forever and ever and ever. And that's what we need to do, is grow beyond that. Meditate, if you can, every day. Clear your mind. Learn to get calm. Learn to get quiet. And every day, practice telepathy, as in Telepathy 101. for a few minutes every day, 15, 20 minutes. Concentrate on the Sandia Mountain, the Sandia crew. You can concentrate on specific Hanti who you might be attracted to or you might feel who's around you. They are listening. They want to meet you. They want to talk to you. Now, that's step one. They're going to, and you need to kind of get on Twitter and follow them on Twitter. They're not anywhere else on social media. Twitter's easy enough to turn on and follow. Their Twitter handle's simple. I'll have all of that on my website. My website that talks about this stuff is disclosurerecovery.com. That site right now, I've got a little problem with something called my SSL, HTTPS security. So you're going to get this nasty warning going, the site's not secure. Don't worry about that. I'll fix that when I get home. That broke last week and I thought I had it fixed and it came back again today. So when you go to my site, don't worry about that there's a security problem. It is my site. It's not been hacked. It's just the fear thing that they're doing with you've got to do HTTPS as opposed to HTTP. And when I get back, I'll fix that. But anyway, the story with the Ponti and particularly with Xufu and the encounter that I had with him and all of that story is there. Also on that site down a little bit is a link to click on where Clifford Mahuti tells his story. When I get back home, the video that I'm doing right now, the link will be there for this talk, and I'll add the references and the links to get to the Sandia site. And theirs is easy. It's officialfirstcontact.com. The Twitter handle, I don't know it off the top of my head, but I'll put that there. I think it's Sandia. At Sandia Wisdom, I believe, is the Twitter handle. I'm pretty sure that's right. At Sandia. At Sandia something. Wisdom. Okay. Yeah. Talking to her, talking to you, and switching consciousness. That's always kind of, she's going to leave too. She says, oh, I got to get out of here. And she's going wherever. She's physically here. So they don't teleport. So there's a ship out there somewhere that got her here. Huh? Yeah. But so she's got to leave. Glad she showed up. That's neat to get the author of Telepathy 101 to show up. She's really fun. She likes to dance, and she's learning. Her and Gerudi are most of the people at Sandia Station are male. There's just a few females, and her and Gerudi are a couple of the females. But she is learning. She likes American dance, and she's learning American dance. And she's, you can't see her, but she's physically right there, and she can go wherever she wants to if the commander allows her to go. And as she left, she's saying, yeah, the commander said, let's pull one ship out of Alien Com and get out and see these people across the country. And then we've got more work to do tonight. They are nocturnal, and they live deep underneath the mountain. Their eyes are interesting because when you see the sketches that Sue makes that are supposedly pretty accurate, and I think they are, you'll see not the black eyes. You'll see actually their eyes that look like us. They have an extra eyelid. It's like a shade. The illumination here is very, very harsh for them. Their sun is very dim. Their world is very dim. They're nocturnal. Even the light here at night under a new moon is painful to them to the point that those dark eye covers move in place by themselves. They have triple eyelids, kind of like some fish that do. That's what that's all about. So when we see them, and that's true with the ones that we're doing abduction too. They're kind of the same race, different philosophy. And another thing in closing to understand really clearly, there are 25 or so non-terrestrial star people, star groups, star nations here. They're here to help us with this disclosure. They're here to help us wake up. They're working with each other and several of the major councils. And we need to learn to start to talk with them, talk about them, communicate with them. The Ponti are more than willing to work with you, talk to you. They'll ping you, you can ping them, you can develop communication, you can have conversations. If you want, once your telepathy is doing pretty good, you can invite them to come and see you. And they're actually giving people rides in some of their ships right now. They will paralyze you and they'll blank your mind if you end up on a ship. They don't want you to freak out. They don't want you to break something. They don't want you to do something that might harm you. So you're kind of tranquilized, very much like we do with wild animals that we need to do veterinary work on, for example. So with that, I'll close. I think Shirley may have a few of the Telepathy 101 to give out here.
I just have the one big one.
Oh, just the one big one. Okay.
Big one.
Okay. And one of the things when you print it, something to know when you print it out, it's a long book. Let me go quickly over this. When you print it out, if you print it one page at a time, I think it's 200 pages. Okay. What you want to do, these are JPEGs. So what you want to do when you print it out is tell it to put like 4 to a page. Okay. Or tell it to put here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8 to a page. When you do that, it's a reasonable 30, 40, 50 pages. If you print it out one page at a time, it's like a 275 page book. Okay, yeah. I guess she's got at least one copy. But it's free to download. If you choose, download the book, read it, start to work with it. Start to call to Sandia Mountain, Sandia Crew, or specific members that are in communication that you'll learn from the book and you can learn from the website. If you feel attracted to a certain person on official first contact, call their name. Their pronunciation of there's a lot of little audio file on each of the pictures on the new website. And that has got the how to pronounce their name. And so just call them. This was Peter that was just here. She's very interesting, fun, nice. Gerudi is the telepathy instructor. Gerudi, I keep telling her, you know, I've run into people like you before. In the military, they were called drill instructors. Did you practice your telepathy? Yes, ma'am. You need to practice more. I didn't hear you practicing. Okay, I'll work on it. Now you need to do that. Gerudi is like that. She's like a Marine drill instructor. Peta is really nice and sweet. And she just kind of laughs at us. And she laughs at Gerudi. The commander, I don't talk to him very much. He's very busy. But he's interesting. He's sometimes very friendly, very nice. Sometimes he is absolutely all business. But they're out there. They're real. You can talk to them. You can learn to see them. And you can learn a lot from these folks. It's an interesting thing. Second thing is serendipitous stuff. You get a feeling that you're supposed to go somewhere or do something. Gee, go ahead and do it. We got a person here that got this thing that came to him, said, hey, dude, you need to go to ECETI. You need to go see James Gilliland. And the cool thing is, he's going. Wow, I'm so excited for him because that's a special place with some very special people. That particular encounter is so connected that the only people there are a very carefully chosen and vetted group, the visitors, not just the speakers, everyone present on the grounds. So it's so cool that one of the people here is actually going to be there. So anyway, that's it. And pick up Telepathy 101. It's free if you want to start trying to do this. It does work. You need to practice meditation, center yourself, calm your mind, quiet your mind. That's how we grow. Don't get caught in the fear. There's an awful lot of fear everywhere. Turn off your television. There's nothing there. Certainly turn off mainstream media, the newspapers and all of that. There's nothing there. That stuff is all lies, on top of lies, on top of lies, on top of lies. So turn that junk off. Instead of watching the nightly news, meditate or work on telepathy or learn to talk to some of these people or get on the internet and talk to independent investigators. I can send you a list of people who are really good or who I personally know. Talk to people that are doing positive stuff about ETs and UFOs and be aware, just like in the government right now, in the ET, ESP, ET, non-terrestrial community, there's another one of these stupid wars where there's a bunch of people attacking a bunch of other people saying they're not valid and on and on. Get beyond all that stuff. What's really going on, there's a huge attack going on against David Wilcock and Corey Good and Jimmy Church of all people. And James Gilliland's in this. A really crazy, unfounded attack. And I'm looking at this and going, what is going on here? And I realize it's been going on for a while. But what's going on is one of the things that the deep state, the Illuminati, and all of these people in control that are losing control right now, they apparently in the ET-ESP non-terrestrial community, they don't want us talking to each other, just the same as they want to control the narrative that's having to do with world politics and economy and all of that. So it's a macrocosm with the world. The microcosm is in our own community. I mean, my goodness, attacking James Gilliland, that's the most stupid thing I've ever heard. Attacking Jimmy Church. Jimmy Church he brings on interesting people on his program over and over. He talks to people across all kinds of spectrums. He doesn't have any sort of preference or prejudice to anyone. Jimmy Church's Fade to Black is an incredibly good program. I've met Jimmy. I like him. I think he's a good, down-to-earth guy. I've certainly met James. And that's a good down-to-earth guy. So there's a little war going on. Ignore all that. Learn stuff. There's some really good knowledge out there. I do link to, on my website, the Disclosure Recovery, I do link to, when I see things that look interesting, I do link to things there. I also link to the Friends of Warren Light Center on Facebook. I link to certain people sometimes in Messenger, Facebook Messenger, and I link to a number of people now using direct messages in Twitter. I hadn't done that until I met this gal in January saying, oh, direct message me on Twitter. I go, do you use Facebook messages? She says, oh, goodness, no. I would never go on Facebook. Well, I found out why. And this is what's really neat. The thing that really blew my mind about her is I asked her, I knew she worked. I said, well, what do you do? She says, oh, I'm a math teacher at high school. I'm going, you're a math teacher at high school and you believe in invisible beings that you can talk to telepathically? She says, yep. She says, now you know why I don't use my name and I'm not on Facebook. So anyway, that's it for me tonight.